From looms to Land Cruisers, forklifts, and family sedans, Toyota didn't just enter the auto industry, they changed the way that Americans made, drove, and thought about cars and trucks. It's a company that turned thread into trucks and, oh, this is good enough, into this will definitely outlive you and your children. They faced strikes, recalls, congressional grilling. At multiple points, the whole thing could have just folded up like cheap lawn chair furniture. But instead, they built a system so efficient that it changed global manufacturing. And somehow, some way, they made beige exciting. I'm Carter, and this is a scenic route on the history of Toyota. Oh, where's my dog? Hold on. In the late 1800s, Sakichi Toyoda was out here inventing automatic looms. Not cars, looms for thread and weaving and things like that. I don't really know what a loom is. The man looked at the thread and said, you know what this needs? Automation. His Type G automatic loom could stop itself if a thread broke. He literally was building in quality control into his loom 75 years before people had indoor plumbing. People were literally dropping brown snakes into bottomless pits. Meanwhile, Toyota was perfecting his craft. It's a visual for you. So around this time, Sakichi's son Kiichiro, who grew up around clacking machinery and industrial ambition, which is probably why he couldn't hear his dad's objection when he had this ultimate epiphany. He thought to himself, have you seen Europe? They have cars. And that was pretty much it. It's always the kids that have the good ideas, right? So in 1933, inside the Toyota Automatic Loom Works, they quietly started an automotive division. Now imagine telling your loom bros like, hey guys, we're pivoting to engines. It's a lot less thread, a lot more explosions. It's pretty much the same vibe. Let's do it. By 1936, they built their first passenger car, the Model AA. And let's just say it looked familiar to some of the other cars that are around in that era. And by familiar, I mean they basically reverse engineered American sedans and built their own version to spec. And in 1937, Toyota Motor Company was officially founded. Now, notice the spelling change. Toyota became Toyota because it looked cleaner in Japanese script. And fun fact, took exactly 8 brushstrokes to make. 8 is a lucky number. Branding meets numerology. I respect it. Although, if you kind of look at the Toyota, it has 2 little accents over it, which is kind of like the Ford 4x4 logo. So I don't know if I could agree with it, but it's fine. Toyota forever. And then just like any good origin story from the 1900s, those pesky Nazis decided that they wanted to, take over the world. And they recruited their sushi-loving counterparts. And of course, Toyota had to pivot to mostly building trucks for the Japanese military. Your Tacoma used to be aligned with the Nazis. Fun fact. Now, after the Allies' victory, even my public school brain can assume that the Japanese economy was just in absolute shambles. It wasn't just stalling, it was in total engine failure. Inflation was redlining, and the government's Dodge line policy basically sucked the nitrous right out of the market. Toyota was bleeding cash, and we're talking millions of yen every single month. They were so broke that they had to go to the banks with their hat in their hands just to keep the lights on. But the banks didn't want interest. They wanted a total teardown and restructure. Now, to get that sweet, sweet bank credit, Toyota had to do the unthinkable. They split the company into 2. You have the Toyota Motor Company handling the nuts and bolts of manufacturing, and the Toyota Motor Sales Company handling the show me the money side. This wasn't just a paperwork shuffle. These 2 wouldn't officially get back together until 1982. But it gets even messier. In order to survive, Toyota had to break their biggest promise: no layoffs. And if you know anything about Japanese culture, they are definitely men of their word. So to break that, Toyota asked for 1,600 voluntary retirements, and they ended up slashing wages by 10%. Now, the workers did exactly what you would expect, right? They quietly nodded their heads and walked into the sunset, never to be seen again. You think blue-collar Japanese boys were just going to bend over and take it? No, they went on a massive 2-month strike. It got so hot and heavy that even the big boss himself, Kiichiro Toyoda, ended up resigning and taking the blame for the mess. Now imagine resigning from a company that literally has your name on the building. We reached the point of the video that Cash asked you to subscribe. He hurt his paw, but he's going to be fine. Don't you worry about it. If you want this tasty boy to get a treat, just make sure you subscribe to our channel, because he does not like sitting on my lap. Now, just when Toyota was about to head to the big scrap heap in the sky, a literal war saved them. The Korean War kicked off in June of 1950, and suddenly the US military needed some trucks, and boatloads of them. Uncle Sam put in an order of over 4,600 Toyota trucks. And that massive infusion of cash didn't just jumpstart the company, it literally saved Toyota's soul. Now, if you're not smelling what I'm smoking here, Toyota just got a second lease on life. They were staring down the barrel of bankruptcy, and they realized that they couldn't just be good enough. They have to be perfect. Enter Kaizen. In Japanese, Kaizen literally translates to change for the better or continuous process improvement. Imagine if every single day you tried to make your morning coffee just 1% faster. Now imagine an entire factory of thousands of people doing that with every single bolt, weld, and door handle. Things are about to get efficient real fast. Now, this is the wild part. Toyota gave every single worker in the factory the power to pull the cord and stop the entire assembly line if they saw a mistake. In any other factory, this would get you fired. At Toyota, it was celebrated because fixing a problem now meant that it wouldn't become a recall later. And their ultimate flex, just-in-time inventory management. Instead of having mountains of expensive parts sitting in a dusty warehouse, Toyota refined their process so parts arrived exactly when they were needed. There was no waste, no fluff, just pure efficiency. Now, this wasn't flashy. This was disciplined, relentless, the automotive equivalent of meal prepping, which is definitely something that I need to do more of, but burritos are so good, so tasty. In 1957, Toyota sent their first sedan, the Crown, to the United States, and it did not go so great. Americans were like, cute car, but do you realize our highways are the size of football fields? And do you not remember our old Tea Party story a couple hundred years ago? Not a fan of crowns or kings or queens or anything like that, so Toyota went back to the drawing board. In 1966, they dropped the Corolla. I didn't know it was that old. Of course, this wasn't necessarily winning any points with the ladies, but this thing was reliable. It was smart. It would start up in a heat wave or a blizzard. And by 1970s, during the oil crisis, while Americans were panic buying gasoline and your granddaddy had to sell his 1970 Dodge Charger because the thing made 4 miles per gallon, Corolla wasn't just cute. It was the smart option. Now, this is when people began finding out that their Toyotas just didn't die. All right, anywhere. They handled the heat, the cold, the neglect, the 3 missed oil changes, and a trunk full of regret. At the drop of a key turn, this thing would just start, much like my unresolved childhood issues. Yeah. In 1982, Toyota formed a joint venture with General Motors called the NUMMI in California. The idea was simple. Teach an American factory the Toyota way. And guess what? It worked. Different workers, same system. Wildly better results. Turns out the process actually does matter. And then in 1989, Toyota said, what if we class this joint up a little bit and hit the luxury market? And of course, everyone laughed, but politely. Polite little Japanese laughs. Toyota, you keep your Corolla. They unveiled the Lexus. The LS400 rolled out smoother than jazz in a glass elevator. It was quieter than a library at midnight and cheaper than its German rivals. And it did not break. BMW and Mercedes, their buttholes puckered up tighter than Chuck Norris and roundhouse kicks. They were not ready for this. In the 1990s, Toyota kept expanding. The Camry became the default setting for American sedans. The Tacoma immediately became beloved by all. The FJ Cruiser, the 4Runner, all of these platforms just hit the market and everyone absolutely loved it. Now, if you close your eyes and pictured a car from that era, it's probably a beige Camry doing exactly what it promised. No more, no less. But then somebody at Toyota popped the hood of the future and said, what if these engines had a little bit of help? In 1997 in Japan, they launched the Prius, the first hybrid. This is gas plus electric, and people thought it looked weird.
That's right.
It still does. But it worked. And by the 2000s, celebrities were driving Priuses to award shows to prove that they loved the planet. Toyota was stacking hybrid patents like Pokemon cards. The early 2000s weren't perfect.
You're absolutely right.
Rapid growth led to quality control issues and massive recalls around 2009. Unintended acceleration headlines, congressional hearings, the reputation for invincibility and reliability definitely took a hit. But did Toyota panic? No. Did they press the ejecto-cito button? Nay. They did what they do best. They went back to the basics. They produced that sweet quality over nasty volume. Akio Toyoda, grandson of the founder, took the wheel and publicly apologized. They doubled down on safety, engineering discipline, and regaining trust. No welding in random bars and hoping for the best. They had real fixes. And while they were at it, they remembered something important. Cars should be fun. So we got the rebirth of the Supra. The 86, the Gazoo Racing Rally Championships, Le Mans wins with hybrid hypercars. Quiet, sensible Toyota suddenly showing up in a racing suit and kicking some ass. All the while, the RAV4 was helping invent the modern crossover back in the 90s. The SUV class ballooned into the dominant species of American roads, and Toyota was right there with the Highlanders, 4Runners, Tacomas, Tundras, from mall parking lots to actual mountains. Now today, Toyota is one of the largest automakers on earth. They have hybrids everywhere, plug-ins, hydrogen experiments with the Mirai, solid-state batteries, whispers floating around the boardrooms. They build millions of cars every single year and somehow still obsess over the angle of a door hinge. From a loom that stopped when a thread snapped to cars that practically refused to, Toyota built an empire on a radical idea that things should work for a long time with minimal drama. Now, drive through just about any city and you're going to see a 30-year-old Corolla commuting alongside brand new hybrids. Same badge, same promise, different era. It's not the loudest brand, it's not the flashiest, but it might be the most stubbornly competent. There's so much to go over with Toyota. I didn't want to make this video an hour and a half long, so I hope you enjoyed it. And if you like deep dives like this, make sure you subscribe to our channel. It does help the algorithm, and I hate asking for it. But if you like the video and leave a comment, we're going to know that you loved the video. What should we go over next? I don't know, Ferrari drama, BMW chaos, Ford fist fights. We've got stories. We just want to know what you guys want to hear next. And if you didn't know, we're giving away a Toyota Sequoia and MDC USA trailer at Forge 4x4 plus $50,000 in cash. It's really easy to get simple and also supports the channel. Buy anything in our shop, you're automatically entered to win. No purchase is necessary, void where prohibited. Thanks for watching on this one. Cash, did you like that? No, he didn't care. He's tired. It's nap time. Thanks for watching, guys. And Dad, if you're watching, that Corolla you bought in the 1990s, that was a financially responsible decision, and I'm proud of you.